Welcome. We are going to talk through law practice management tools and the essential elements of a law practice management system, including some of the software offerings that are available today. As we go through the presentation, hopefully you can use this as sort of a checklist if you're thinking about transitioning to a new law practice management tool or trying to combine the various types of tools that you already have. So we're going to start off by going through some of the essential elements of a law firm in terms of technology needed, and then we'll see how those are kind of grouped together by the various service providers that are serving lawyers and other businesses. And then we'll look at some specific law practice management applications that are available, and each is how they take somewhat unique approach to that particular service offering. And you can hopefully use that as a springboard to figure out or jumpstart your research as to what fits best for your practice. Law practice management tools are often touted as a one-size-fits-all solution, and oftentimes we know that's not the case in terms of how our attorneys work or how we just work as individuals. And so trying to take the ideas that are there and figure out now in our software as a service world or cloud computing world what best fits our practices. And so that's one of the greatest things about tools for today, is that there are a lot of available options for you and a lot of customizable feature sets that may fit a specific need that you have in your practice. So what are some of the elements of a law practice management tool, kind of the essential things to operate a law office? Backup system. What is a docketing system for you, and how do you use that? What if you need to share that calendar among multiple users in the office, and those types of questions. And so calendar is a big part of an essential law practice management system. Again, be that if it's in a software tool or a paper-based calendar. How are you going to handle contacts? The lifeblood of any practice is clients. And so how do we make sure that we're maintaining an accurate listing of those clients? That database can take a bunch of different forms in today's world, where you might have contacts on a mobile device, you might have contacts in your Outlook database or your Gmail account or your Google Suite, or some type of CRM or client or customer relationship management software. How do you keep all of those activities about those contacts in one place and keep that information up to date? So that's one of the things you'll want to address or think through. How are you going to manage your contacts database? And then obviously, what about documents or files related to the representation? This is obviously something very important in today's connected world in terms of electronic file storage, but don't forget to think about how are you going to navigate paper files if those are still there. And if you create a file cabinet full of files, or if you need to store original versions or property on behalf of a client, how will that integrate with your system? How will you track that, make sure that it's returned to the client or retained appropriately? And so we'll talk about some services that are available mostly on the electronic side for that. Unfortunately, love it or hate it, email is here to stay and is a big part of our practice. And so that's a big consideration as you're thinking about an essential part of a law practice management tool set is email. Who's going to host the email? Are you going to use a domain-based email like yourfirm.com, or are you going to use an AOL account? I think you probably know which way I would advise you to go on that issue. Better to have that professional email domain and managed email service in today's connected world. So many things and items of our practice transition through email now and are communicated that way. It just makes so much more sense to have someone handle that for you. And we'll talk about some of the options available. Then task management. This is a growing area, especially with AI or artificial intelligence starting going to integrate into a lot of the systems and services that we have access to. And one of the big features here from a law practice management side is the ability to create task flows or workflows that help manage similar types of cases. And so you may have a case opening checklist that is a assignable task list to the various individuals that you work with, or even yourself, so you don't forget an essential element or detail related to opening a file, for example. And there's some different options available to there, and you'll see some pretty neat options available through law practice management tools later in the presentation. Word processing, we don't do a whole lot in the law profession if we're not able to take those words that we have and present them to either our clients or the courts or whoever it needs to be as a professional product. And what are the options available and what type of practice do you have may generate that decision for you, because you may need to do online collaboration, for example, and some types of word processors are better suited for that than others. Or you may need everything to be as robust as possible because you're writing appellate briefs, for example, and some of the online tools may not quite be sufficient for what you need to do in your practice. And so how do you handle the word processing? And related to that would be some type of database or spreadsheet program that can help in the various types of practices. And what law practice management discussion would be complete without talking about billing and the financial management of the firm. And so you need a way to present invoices or some type of request for payment for the work that you've done. And you need a way to track that coming in and make sure that you're accounting for things correctly. This is obviously especially crucial in areas of client trust accounts and trust management. And so any tool that you utilize needs to have the capability to do that for you and do that for you consistently. Well, let's take a look at some of the calendaring options that are available to us in today's connected world. And good old tried and true standby of paper planners is still a big part of most people's lives. And so it's completely fine to have that type of thing in your practice. The issue is always making sure that there's some way to back that up and or be able to share that calendar with others in your office. And so as an example, we have folks who like the paper planner because they fits the way they think in our office, but they will use that as sort of their backup and use an electronic calendar that can be shared with everyone throughout the office as a primary calendar tool. The issue sometimes occurs, as you might expect, where something gets put on the paper calendar but didn't quite make it into the backup system or is in process. And so there are some times where that can create a little bit of a challenge if you're trying to synchronize things up a little bit, but that's definitely an option for you. Again, the best practice here is to make sure you have some sort of dual or backup calendar system if you're going to utilize a paper-based planner, because they can get lost or they can get coffee spilled on them or something along those lines, and they're less easy to recreate if necessary. So have that plan in place. You can see that this website, thewirecutter.com, will even help you decide what is your favorite paper planner on a particular year, and you'll find no shortages of opinion on any of those types of planners and what works best. Again, the key is what's effective for you. If you have access to Office 365, or what's now called Microsoft 365, you likely have access to Microsoft Outlook, and that's an electronic calendar that is built into Microsoft's professional offerings here that we'll be talking about. And so the calendar system there is a little bit more integrated. You have the ability to share calendars or allow someone else to add events to your calendar for you as a delegate if you have multiple people in the office. And it's kind of the next step in the chain in terms of getting that connection back and forth. Still somewhat limited in that it's your primary calendar and you have to open up multiple calendars if you want to see everything that's going on, but this one is fairly familiar to us. The benefit here, obviously, is you can also have Outlook on your phone or connect to your Outlook calendar through your phone's calendar app that's built in and log in to download those appointments and keep those in sync which is very helpful in court, for example. Google Workspace, or Google, has its own calendar. This is an online calendar primarily. Obviously, you can download it, much like you can with your Outlook calendar, to a calendar app on your device, but its benefit is it's online and it's shareable, and everybody can have access to that calendar if you allow them to do that. Again, would suggest that you utilize some sort of workspace account versus a Gmail-based account that's a free account, and keep things under lock and key, so to speak, as you are considering utilizing this in the law practice for those types of security reasons. And make sure you understand how this particular service, or whatever service you end up using, is going to handle your data and keep that secure. But there's some benefits, obviously, to having everything being web-based, which is primarily how Google accesses things or provides access to its tools for you. But that's a widely used and available opportunity for calendars. If you have an Apple device and Apple iCloud, you also have a calendar built in. You can do that calendar through the calendar app on an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac computer, or you can access it on the web. Very similar types of tool sets in terms of having multiple calendars, as you can see on the slide here, and you can look at different individuals' calendars or share calendars among people in the iCloud environment. Again, one of these challenges in the connected world is which calendar becomes sort of your default calendar and which becomes your backup calendar. Just keep that distinction clear, with the idea that if you are not in the office on a particular day, for example, your team that is there or is covering something for you knows where to go to find out what you're up to on a particular day, and practically that they don't overschedule you or double book you on a particular item. And so iCloud has some features built for that. Google, as well as Outlook. You just have to pick kind of what's best for your particular scenario. On to contacts. There are built-in contact management tools in a lot of the applications that we already use. So for example, on your iPhone, you have a contacts app. That's the same app on your Macintosh computer or your iPad, and that by default connects to Apple's sync service or iCloud contacts. And so you can access those contacts on the web as well. Outlook has its own contact database. You can see in the orange new contact item listed on the screen, but essentially we're familiar with how these types of things work. The important thing is to understand where those contacts are stored. So in these two examples, Apple has its iCloud as a default. You can change that default to be your Outlook default if you'd like. Outlook's default is your Microsoft 365 or your Exchange server or something along those lines. And so you'll know where those contact records are stored. The challenge in today's connected world a lot of times is we may create a contact and it shows up in a personal database versus a work database. And you just want to understand where those contacts are stored and how you're going to store them. So for my work contacts, as an example, I always want everyone's full legal name, because oftentimes that's the type of practice that I do. I need a full legal name to make sure that I have all that information available. In my personal contact database, I may not need that. I may want to use someone's nickname, so I don't see their full first, middle, and last name each time I need to interact with them. And so trying to make sure that I keep each contact database clean for its specific purpose. And again, I may not want to share all of my work contacts with my personal database because it may be a personal iPhone that I'm using or something along those lines. And I don't necessarily want, if my child is going to use my device to play a game or text someone or something, I don't necessarily want them to have access to all of my work-related contacts for security purposes. So you just need to understand where each of those services stores and manages that information. Google or Google Workspace has its own contact database as well. Again, this is primarily based on the web and then downloaded to your device as needed. And there are lots of fun things that can be done with contact managers. So in this example, you see that there are duplicates found. And so your contact tool can help you manage your contacts. You can keep notes and build your own CR type software within that service. And so there's different tools that may be helpful for you to keep things clean and accurate as you go through. And the tools continue to get better and better, especially with the inclusion of AI tools to help find out whether you have duplicates or those types of things in your contacts database. Let's move on to files and file storage. Obviously, one of the biggest situations that we need to address when we're considering a law practice management tool set is where are we going to store the information that we're provided or we're creating on behalf of clients. One popular solution that has arisen in the last several years is Box. And this is not to be confused with Dropbox, which is another popular storage solution and sharing solution, but this is Box.com. And this is an enterprise level, meaning professional grade file storage product. And you can see what Box is positioning itself as is the one place for your content. And largely this means that your files are stored on Box servers and accessed by you through whatever device is internet connected. So, as they say, you don't have any more file servers or shadow IT or complex content management tools. You can put everything inside of Box and then do a lot of work on top of what Box is. So there are a lot of additional features that are available through the Box platform, including some AI tools that can be built on top of what you're doing. But for purposes of a law practice management system, one of the closest ways I was able to find to replicate the familiar files and folder structure that many lawyers are comfortable utilizing. And so it works much like a file server where you navigate to the files through Windows Explorer or through the Finder application on your Macintosh or through the app on the mobile devices, and you can simply create files and folders to store information. And so it works in a way that's very familiar to most of us, and a way that also gives us some of the power of having the storage handled and security handled by Box rather than our own file servers. So if you're looking for a solution, that would be one that is very helpful as a backbone tool for your office. And as you can see from the screen, there are the capabilities of versioning to share secure links versus sending attachments, which is a very helpful thing, especially if information that you are exchanging electronically has confidential components to it. So as you think about the capabilities that would come from utilizing this type of service, keep in mind that security is an important feature here, and Box actually has different pricing tiers that will increase or adjust your level of security as well. They can, for example, give you compliance certificates for HIPAA-related things if necessary, and work through a lot of those things because they are enterprise level, meaning they serve a lot of large organizations now. So check out Box.com if you have need of an online file storage system that may be good for your law firm. Microsoft offers OneDrive, a similar platform to Box. As you can see, each of these slides will show you that there's a mobile application available and a web application, and typically some sort of application accessible on your Windows computer through Windows Explorer or the file manager or the Finder on Mac. And so this system is Microsoft's built-in file storage system through Microsoft Office 365. So if you already have an account there, you have access to OneDrive. Now the file storage limits and things are going to be dependent upon what tier or level of access that you have, but it's a built-in file and folder storage system that you can utilize as part of your existing subscription. We initially tried this product in our office years ago, and it wasn't quite as easy to share different files at that time. In recent years, that limitation has improved, but we found Box to be more accessible to multiple users in the office, and OneDrive at that point was more one-to-one, and you could obviously send files to other people, but sharing folders and things wasn't as robust at that time. That may have changed in recent years. I haven't looked at it most recently to see if it could replace Box for us, but it is on my list of things to take a look at because we already pay for Microsoft 365 and having OneDrive included may meet our needs. And so that's another situation to take a look at and see if that meets your file and document storage needs. Google Drive is another option. This is Google's offering through your workspace account, very similar to having easy and secure access to your content. And again, one of the hallmarks of Google's offerings are the integration and shareability of files, especially through web. And so the collaboration piece on Google's side is typically more available than it might be on a Box side, for example, or on a Microsoft side. And so the collaboration piece, if you're practice depends on multiple people collaborating on a file at a time, Google Drive may be a good resource for you and fit that need. Again, check and make sure that it meets your security requirements as well. And of course, Dropbox. Many of us are familiar with Dropbox because it was one of the first offerings in this space where it made it easy to sync files between multiple computers, where you could simply download the application to your laptop, put files in there, go to work, open up your desktop computer, and you would have access to those files. And that's where Dropbox started and has since grown into a robust file sharing and storage platform as well. And so it's one that you can utilize and you're probably already familiar with because it's been around for a long time, and see if it fits your needs. And a lot of these services are now integrating sort of additional features into their primary offerings so that as you're working through a file lifecycle, for example, you may need to send that document for electronic signature. Dropbox has that capabilities and Box has that capability to send those files out for electronic signature, and you've likely received those requests from time to time through those platforms. And so those features being added into your existing account are very helpful to give you more capability to practice with your new online software in a better and more efficient manner. All right, let's talk a little bit about email as we're looking at the various email options that are available. Google Workspace is sort of Google's offering of a suite of tools that include things like Gmail, but this is not Gmail that's free. It's actually a custom business email. This Google Workspace would also include the calendar and the Google Drive that we talked about, video and voice conferencing through Google Meet. It would include documents, sheets, and slides, and chat. And so when you're starting to think about email, what typically happens is that is now sort of a bundled service as part of an Office suite of tools that is offered. And so very similar workspace or Office 365 type offerings that will be presented by Google or Microsoft or whichever company, so that you can have an entire suite of tools available to you by getting your email. It used to be that you would have a file server or email server, in your office, and would rely on that to host and exchange your email. Now we're seeing these workspace accounts handling email and everything else, which is really helpful, especially from a cost perspective. So Gmail through its Google side is an option, and Outlook through Office 365 is an option as well. This is the web version interface of Outlook. You can access your email from anywhere in the world as long as you have a web browser, and you can also access it through an app, whether that's a desktop app for your computer or laptop, and your mobile devices as well. Microsoft, as I mentioned before, used to have its Exchange server that you would typically purchase and put into your office. Now they're moving everything to these Exchange Online plans. And I bring this slide up just to help you understand that when you're talking about email in particular, you can actually just get email without all of the other Office suite components associated with it. And that's around $4 as of the time of this presentation per month. And then as you see going from left to right on this slide, you can actually increase that option or include what's called Microsoft 365 Business Standard. And that starts to include everything in the Exchange side, but also desktop versions of Word and Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. It gives you webinar capabilities and those types of things. And so as you're looking at these services, you'll need to consider whether you need that sort of one-off service. Maybe I just need email because I have everything else handled over here. Or are you going to bundle everything together and kind of get that tool suite in one monthly cost, which tends to be the model of the software as a service world now. Let's talk for a minute here about task management and the options available just as a standalone task manager. So if you have a Google account, you have access to Google's version of tasks. And this is not a workspace account. This is just a Gmail account. And what you can see is this is just a nice interface for the calendar side of Google. But it also, if you click to the little check mark box in the upper right hand corner, you'll see your task list. And Google organizes these lists based on these cards. And so you can add tasks to Seth's list, for example, or a project list or a calls list in this example. And so you can drag and drop things between the lists. You could build a Kanban style project management tool within the task manager itself and handle things the way that you feel most comfortable. But that's built into the Google suite of tools. Microsoft used to utilize Outlook to manage its tasks. And so you would have a tasks section of Microsoft Outlook, and that integrated with the various options available in Outlook. That has since separated out to what's called Microsoft To Do. And you see a version of that on the screen. This is the Mac version of Microsoft To Do, and you can see that it starts to present you with its task management philosophy. You'll see that you have planner tasks, so you can integrate with Microsoft's planning tool called Planner, which you'll have access to if you have Office 365 or Microsoft 365. And so you can build out plans inside of that planning tool, and it will show up in your Microsoft To Do app as shown here. It integrates with Outlook in that you can flag email and have it search for those flagged emails. And so in this example, this is pulling up a flagged email that is in one of my subfolders in Outlook. And if I click on that particular task, it will open that email and allow me to respond to or do what I need to do with that email. And then I just have a standalone task for CLE prep, and that is available just as a task. So I can keep a list of tasks in this application, and it's easy to access and then sort and filter as shown on the left. So things that are due today will show up under My Day. I can star different tasks, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, and those will show up under the important filter on the left. So you can take a long list of tasks and sort it down to hopefully a more manageable amount of tasks. You can see that there are tasks that are assigned to me or flagged email and those kind of things. You can create multiple lists, so you can have a home and a work list. So while simple in appearance, it is a very powerful tool as you're thinking about managing your tasks. And again, it's built into your Microsoft offerings. If you have a Mac computer or an iPhone or iPad, you have access to Apple's reminders, an example of which is shown on the screen. And this is very similar to what we just saw in Microsoft To Do, in that on the left-hand side, you have different filters available for all the tasks or the lists of tasks that will show up on the right-hand side. And so I have this shown, the today view, and it will break up the tasks if you have time-based reminders into morning, afternoon, and later tonight. Where these types of planning tools become really helpful is with what you see on these Siri suggestions. And Siri can integrate with this tool and capture things by voice. If you say the magic phrase to turn on Siri as a listening device and tell it to remind you to do something at a certain time, then those tasks will get captured in your reminders application, and you'll be able to see those listed here. Like the other task managers we've seen can separate things into different types of lists. So for example, if you want to have a grocery store or a Costco list, you can do that. You can share those lists with other users in your family or other iCloud users, and other people can add to that. So in an office environment, that can be helpful if we have a shared task list of things that we're working on. But again, these are all the built-in tools to the existing platforms. Word processing is obviously an essential part of what we do, and we'll go through the options here fairly quickly because we're all familiar with Microsoft Word. For example, this is the desktop application as it appears on Macintosh. Looks slightly different on a Windows computer, but same type of program with all the power tools that we need to run a law practice. You can also access Word on the web, and you can actually share documents and collaborate in real time with others using Word on the web. And it is over time getting more and more feature parity with the desktop application, but it's not quite there yet in everything, but it is pretty good. And so as we're building co-presented CLE platforms or articles, as an example, we'll often share them on Word through the web process so that we can both work on, or multiple people can work on that outline at a particular time. And it's very easy to do. Then we may download that to the desktop version of Word for finalized formatting and those kind of things. However, the capabilities are growing on the online platform, largely I think to keep up with Google, who is definitely the leader in this space in terms of online collaboration, real-time editing on Word-based documents on the web. And so if you do need to collaborate a lot with individuals as part of your practice, and you're going to be doing live editing together on documents, Google can be a really powerful tool for that. And so keep in mind, those are kind of the two big ones. And then Apple does have its own word processing built in called Pages. Pages is a word processor to compare with Microsoft Word, and it also has a online component as well, so you can access documents on the web and collaborate and those kind of things as well. Spreadsheets are another important component, and again, this goes back to sort of the bundling of tools. And so if you have an Office suite, most of the major players will have a spreadsheet component built in. For Microsoft, that's its Excel, which is on desktop here or on the web. And there's different features, if you will, available based on whether the or the Excel platform is used on your desktop or on the web. And some of the web tools are very helpful in terms of creating forms and responses to those via web input, which is very handy on occasion and or for sharing. Apple offers its version of a spreadsheet called Numbers, and it also has a web component that you could utilize if that fits your practice needs. And then Google has what it calls Sheets, and those online spreadsheets are very powerful with lots of different tools and extensions built in. And because it's web-based, it can bring in web-based information a lot of times. There's lots of templates available for different types of things, and it's a very powerful online tool that can be utilized. Same process happens for presentation software in Keynote on Macintosh on device, and then PowerPoint on device from Microsoft, the ubiquitous presentation tool, both of which have online components as well as the desktop component. And Google has its slides software, which is very similar as well. And the benefit of each of these is typically they can export their slideshow into one of the other formats. So if you need to take a Google slideshow and turn it into a PowerPoint, you can export it as a PowerPoint file. And you'll want to double check to make sure none of the formatting or the customization in terms of animations and those kind of things went away, but that's a very powerful tool for you. Now we get to billing and financial management options, and these are kind of the accounting tools. So one of the most ubiquitous in this space is Intuit's QuickBooks via QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks has both the accounting feature and allows you to enter time and create invoices and those kind of things. And so if you need a billing tool that's all in one, QuickBooks is an option for that. And if you're not interested in using QuickBooks Online, there are other online accounting tools or tools available with a quick search for alternatives to QuickBooks Online, and you'll come up with a list of things that may better fit your scenario. There is a program like Harvest, and again, this is just a representative tool where this particular tool is built for tracking time, expenses, and invoicing materials, and it's relatively inexpensive on a per user basis. but it really handles that aspect of things well. I don't use this in my practice, but I do use it for a marketing company that I'm a part of to handle our team and invoicing, and it works very well and integrates with QuickBooks Online for the accounting side. All right, so let's talk in our remaining time together about the actual tools that bring all of these different parts and pieces together. And these are the law practice management tools that are available. And I just picked a few of the top year-by-year legal practice management tools that are available online. So Rockamatter is one. My Case is one that's come out recently. Leap is another one that's kind of come out recently. Fall has been around for a while. Clio. And Clio and Rockamatter sort of started this trend several years ago and have continued to develop and grow. And there are others out there as well, but these are typically the ones in my conversations with lawyers around the state of Indiana they're most familiar with and get good reviews online. And so you might also think about, as you're looking at these cloud-based practice management systems, do they include or do they have access to some type of lead management or CRM tool? And many have them built in. Clio, for example, has 2 separate services for that, and we'll talk about that. But it's always something to keep in mind of how do you manage your active matters and your potential matters. And you can do all of that through one system, but as things progress, sometimes it's helpful to have 2 different systems to manage those. So Rockamatter, if you look at what their offering is, you'll start to see some trends and some familiar types of layouts in terms of the various offerings. And so what you'll want to do is, as we go through this presentation, sort of figure out what platform kind of works with your practice philosophy and how you want to work. And there's probably a system that sort of matches that most closely. That may be the best fit for you, but essentially they're going to have similar features. So practice management, you're going to have the ability to organize all of this various pieces of information that we just talked about into sort of a single place to go see all of that based on a particular case or matter. You want to make sure that the practice management software has time, billing, and payments capability built in. We talked about CRM in Rockamatter's case, that's built here, and Rockamatter can actually help you create a website if you don't have one as well. And so if we look at the practice management features in Rockamatter and other tools, you want to make sure there's some way for you to handle your case management. And in Rockamatter's case, they also have a component that they utilize for legal project management. And so if that's something that your case types would benefit from or your client base would benefit from, you might want to look into something that has that capability built in, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of that system or process for actually managing those projects. Each tool should have some type of document automation. What that document automation tool set is dependent on each, and so you would need to determine how complex or how basic you might need for your document automation piece. Rockamatter allows for file sharing and electronic signature, and what you want to watch out for here on your electronic signatures is there a cap based on your pricing tier of how many signatures you might need in a particular month. And so keep in mind that limitation as you're pricing out what might be best for your office. And then collaboration is a big part of Rockamatter's features. And that could be collaboration internally or with your clients. And so figuring out how that works. Again, we talk about the organization with calendars and tasks. We mention those as important pieces of a law practice management toolset. And so Rockamatter has that integrated into its solution. Contact management. Spend a bunch of time there, but it is very helpful to have a centralized database of contacts for your conflicts checking and access throughout your organization or your firm. Advanced reporting is an interesting development with all of these online services now, because now they're starting to notice trends of how folks are doing nationwide or whatever their industry is. And so you can get really detailed looks at how your firm is performing, how the attorneys and staff in your office are doing in completing their tasks, for example, or those kind of things. And so each system sort of has its approach to how it presents that information to the user. And so you'll want to find one that sort of works with your understanding and your philosophy for managing your firm. Each system will have some level of integrations associated with it, and this is how you connect the various services that may support the practice management system. So for example, if you use Microsoft 365, you will want to make sure that a practice management tool like Rocket Matter would integrate with Microsoft 365. And it can support the calendars and the tasks and the contacts and make sure that all of those things work together so that the service that you're using, use your email address, for example, to send out emails and those kind of things. And then finally, making sure that that application has a mobile app if that's something that you need for your office. Let's take a look at the time, billing, and payments section. And obviously this covers the essentials of time tracking, legal billing, accepting online payments, which is important in today's connected world, and legal trust accounting. Again, I mentioned that earlier, where trust accounting is a very important piece of our responsibilities as lawyers. And so the services that we utilize should help us do that in an efficient and accurate manner. So you'll want to understand how each service approaches legal trust accounting. And I mentioned legal CRM. These tools are those client, in our case, relationship management, typically customer relationship management tools. These are tools that help manage the process before someone becomes a client. Maybe they've contacted the firm to inquire about services. Are you following up with them? Are you sending them no hire letters if they've chosen not to retain the office, and those kind of things? And so having that separate component of your entire tool set can be very helpful. And again, I mentioned that Rocket Matter can help you create a website if you don't have one. And so that's a great tool as well, because it will integrate into your CRM and then your practice management tool as well. So that is Rocket Matter in terms of its offering. And then what these tools are doing is starting to segment into populations that they serve industry-wide. So Rocket Matter handles things across family law, estate, real estate, intellectual property, and business, as an example. These are the core focus practice areas. So if you're outside of that type of practice area, perhaps you might take that as an indication that you want to look at a different tool. Doesn't mean that Rocket Matter wouldn't work if you do personal injury, for example, but maybe there's a tool that's built more specifically to handle personal injury as a practice area than Rocket Matter might be. And there's types of fee issues, right? So you may have a contingency fee versus an hourly or a flat fee, and those kind of things may better lend itself to a different tool set. So just consider that practice area as you're considering which tool might serve you and your firm best. Pricing is going to be hopefully available on the tools that you look at. I just list this here not to compare Rocket Matter's price to others, but to show you sort of how things are typically divided out on these tools. So you'll have some sort of basic or essentials that get you started at a lower price. You're going to have a high end on the right. This is all bells and whistles included. And then you'll have the quote unquote most popular, which is usually the mid-grade that has all of the things listed. And if you look at the list of items below the price, it's going to give you a list of this is what's included here. And then you're going to get these additional things in the middle. And then on the right, you're going to get all of the things to the left plus this list of things. And so that's a very common way for cloud service providers to detail what they are offering in their service offerings. And so as you're looking at pricing pages, just make sure each of those things include what you want so you can get an accurate assessment of your per user, again, typically cost on these situations. All right. We're going to move through the remainder pretty quickly so I can spend a little bit of time at the end of the presentation here talking about the practice management software that we use in our office. So my case is now available. This is connected to LawPay. And so LawPay and my case merged or connected at some point in the past several years. And so there are lots of opportunities to leverage what LawPay has done over the years now through its practice management software offering. And you can see it's trying to be sort of a one-size-fits-all type of offering for firms. So if you already use LawPay, you might consider looking into my case as an example. One of the features that it touts as an offering is making automated repeatable tasks through what they call legal workflows, and reusable templates and those kind of things are super helpful as you have similar types of cases time and again. And again, you can go through and look at the document automation types of tools that it may have available and the reporting that it will have available to you as well. My case, again, is one that tries to be all things to all people. And so as you're looking at a widely applicable practice management tool, my case may fit the bill for that. Leap is another software tool that's come onto the horizon recently. Again, you can see that it's trying to be an all-in-one legal solution. And so all of the essential things that we talked about are included in its offerings as well. And I wanted to point out here, you can see kind of the highlighted area on the screen, the webinar for PC Law / Time Matters firms. Leap has become an integrated partner with a couple of larger organizations like Lexis, who made Time Matters, to now become the offering for Lexis's cloud product. So if you're going to utilize Time Matters and upgrade to a cloud-based system from Time Matters, you're actually going to be utilizing Leap as your case management tool. And there's some information about how to do that or investigate that on Leap's website. Leap is also integrated with some estate planning tools, one of which is called Wealth Counsel. And so there's some integration into Wealth Counsel, which is a drafting tool for estate planning lawyers, and Leap can help manage some of the case management aspects of that particular service as well. Smokeball is another feature or practice management tool that's fairly popular, has a lot of this smart case management workflow type things. So if you're looking for some of those pre-built workflows and things, Smokeball may be a good option for you. All right, in our remaining time, I want to talk through Clio because that's the one I'm most familiar with and is fairly well known in the legal world and is fairly robust and mature as a product now. So when you log into Clio, this is what you're presented with, called your personal dashboard. You can see also that you have a firm dashboard that will give you metrics for your entire firm, and the firm feed, which will walk you through all of the activities that are taking place in your firm in almost real time. It's kind of like an RSS feed of everything that's going on in your office. So you can see which users are completing tasks or adding time entries or emailing clients or making records of things. You have time and billing built in and all of the essential tool sets, but Clio tries to surface important things for you at a glance. And so you can see on this screen, the user has 10 tasks that are due today. They're blurred out, but you can see each of those dots represent a task that is for that user to take care of. And if there are overdue tasks, in this case, there are 10 overdue tasks, those will show up. And if you click on any one of those tasks, it'll take you either directly to the overdue task screen, or it'll take you to that particular task so you can work on it if it's in your due today. Your primary calendar events are on the right, and we'll show you which of your appointments are right there. You can add appointments or go right to that appointment to adjust it from there. As you scroll down the page, you can see you have hourly billing metrics and targets based on those days. You can see your billing metrics for your firm in terms of how many draft bills are there to be reviewed, what is the total amount of those bills in draft, how many are unpaid, how much is your total in unpaid, how many overdue bills do you have, your total there. So at a glance every day, you can see the health of your firm, and you can see at the bottom your personal financial metrics. How much have you billed today, this week, this month, this year, what are against your goals? And you see in the middle of the screen, you can adjust what those personal performance settings are and how that works. And so very helpful to kind of keep you on track and your firm on track each day as you're logging in. Here are the offerings and the integrations that Clio has. They have the dashboard, which we just showed you, the calendar, you have tasks, you have matters, contacts, your activities, your actual bills that you're sending out. You can accept online payments. You can manage your accounts, including your trust accounts. You can manage documents through Clio if you'd like to, or handle that integration separately. You have communications both internally within the office and externally with your clients. You can track emails, and you can also track phone records or make logs of phone records. You have advanced reporting, and you have app integrations that you can include to tie all of these various services together. This is a view of what the calendar looks like. Across the top, you have any of your tasks for a particular day, and they will stay there as they're completed. They just get marked off. The green areas show where the events are for the day, to be showing the work week view. And on the right hand side, you can see that you have access to everyone in the office's calendar just by clicking their name, and you can see that connected with your calendar. And there's about a built-in backup calendar in the system called the firm calendar as well. So every event that we make also goes to the firm calendar, so you can see all of those and have a backup calendar for that. In your tasks, you can create these workflows that we talked about. Clio has some capabilities to add time estimates and statuses and task types that are defaults to make things move very quickly for your office. And you can assign projects to folks and kind of know how they're doing against that particular time estimate if they track their time against that task. You can utilize different types of due dates, whether they're relative due dates based on other tasks or standard, just by picking it. And you can use some date and time math associated with that to help with your workflows. And the benefit of Clio and these other systems is no matter where you are, if you're on a task screen, for example, or a calendar screen or a matter screen, you can add time and it will integrate with whatever that activity name and description is. So if I clicked add time as shown here, it will pull up the name and description, which is shown on the left of the screen, and it will include that in my time entry, so I have less data entry to complete. Clio also has what's called matter stages, so you can drag and drop the matters across different stages in the life cycle of a case, and it will tell you how long those particular matters have been sitting in those stages. So you can see in the left we have some 1 days, and toward the right we have some 50 days, and so we know we need to work on following up on some of those. And then Clio obviously has contacts database. It organizes things via people and companies, and then people can be employees of the companies. And so everything is related and tied together. You can keep track of your time and expenses and make sure that your firm is on target for that. You can have specialized categories for pre-filled time entries for things that you do time and time again. You are able to do your billing. You can look at your outstanding balances, and there's a process by which Clio does its billing, draft bills, pending approval, then it shows your unpaid, your paid, all, and any that you have archived. And you can accept online payments, either one time or you can set people up for repeating payment plans. One of the main features I like about practice management is that you can keep a log of all of your communications. So this can include your phone and email from inside or outside of Clio, your text messages, your internal messages, your client portals. And the client portals are very helpful in the secure world in which we live, and make sure that that communication back and forth with your client is secure and it's easy for the client to access because they are inside of that client portal and they can utilize an app to access and compute or communicate with you. You have a lot of different types of reports. Billing, matter, payments, and revenue reports are some of the most used here, and integrations with other applications that tie everything together in Clio. I mentioned the Clio for Clients application that your client can download. Again, most of these tools have this capability, and that's what the Clio app looks like for you. You can download and have access to your entire law practice in the palm of your hand. So I hope this is helpful for you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, and good luck on your search for the tool that best fits your office.